Welcome back to Elizabeth Plants. I'm Elizabeth, and today we are talking about Syngonium. So today I thought I would kind of take you through my Syngonium, just what I've got, kind of how I take care of them, a little bit of a casual video showing off my collection. Before we get started, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, Teotronics. They have sponsored me in the past with the earbuds. This time they have sponsored me with a ring light. You can probably see it in my glasses, so I have to figure out how to handle that. But I really want to improve the quality of my videos. I record on my phone and that's not going to change anytime soon, so whatever else I can do to improve. For example, on a gloomy day, I simply don't have any light. Today's a gloomy day, so I've got the ring light on, hopefully making the video quality just a little bit better. I know my phone also struggles with focus. I've tried taking it off autofocus. I'm working on fixing that issue. I'm so sorry. But one step at a time, and today it is the ring light. So I'll have information in the description box down below about this ring light. It's adjustable, so that's super cool. It's got multiple settings. I've got the controller right here. I can dim it, so you can probably see the difference there. Let me bring it back up a little bit. I can change it to red light. I do not like the red light. And like an orange light. I prefer the blue or white. I think this is the white light. This is what it's like with it off. So let me know in the comments down below what you guys think looks the best and how distracting it is in my glasses, because I can put contacts in, I just don't have very many left. I need to make an appointment to get more. So let me know in the comments down below what you think of the lighting situation, if the ring light's helpful, if it's not helpful, if I should dim it or brighten it compared to what you see here, or if I need to change it from white to, say, the red. Let me know what you guys prefer, without dim, color. Let me know. So let's get into my collection. I've got most of my Syngonium here on my desk. I have one that is recouping in my greenhouse and one that is hanging in my living room. I will show you a clip of the one hanging in my living room. The one in my greenhouse, I don't want to show you guys yet. It needs some help. But I figured I would first start with my least impressive Syngonium and then go to my most impressive Syngonium and just kind of talk about how I care for them as we go through. Okay, so the first Syngonium that I want to talk to you about, because it is the least impressive, is this guy. Let's see if it'll... So what you are seeing in this pot was a big bush of Syngonium, just a ton of different types of Syngonium. There's some, I think this is the Maria, Mango Illusion, a couple different illusions. I think there was a holly one in here. Maybe a little bit of white butterfly. Kind of a mixed pot in here, but as you can see, there's really not much going on for the size of the pot. And that is because the root system is significant, because it was a ton of plants. But what I have recently done is trim everything back, because my cat had done a lot of damage to it, digging in it once. So I have trimmed it up and am propagating it in water. So here you can see what I believe to be Mango Illusion, maybe. Got a little bit of the Maria, but it looks kind of like a pink one. I think this one might be a little bit of holly. And then in this jar, you've got a little bit more of what looks to be kind of like white butterfly or maybe a holly. We've got some more Maria, some different illusions are in there. But they have not been in water even a week yet. I can see some roots starting to grow, but definitely not growth enough. I'm going to see if anything in the original pot springs back up and starts filling out. However, these guys will likely be put into Leco when their root system is strong enough. Now, how I care for these kind of more common Syngonium is really super easy. Normal house humidities, they're fine in. Any like dry air blowing on them, they'll crisp up. That's why you saw a couple of brown tips on my leaves because of the dry air blowing at them. But other than humidity, I water them whenever the soil dries out. They can tolerate a little bit of dry, but if you let them stay dry for too long, then again, they get the tips and you may lose a couple of leaves. But they're a pretty hardy, tolerant plant. So I will water them when they're dry or when they start drooping. And I will water thoroughly, fertilizing about every other watering all year round, especially if I see growth. And then I will fertilize once in a blue moon in the winter unless I can see that they're growing a lot, and then I treat it just like summer. And that kind of goes for most of my plants and most of my Syngonium, all of those tips. Soil is just, I use a little bit, I use my aeroid mix. I also have a Syngonium or two in this collection that is in leca. I think Syngonium can handle leca pretty well. I have not had Syngonium in leca for very long, so I cannot stand by it yet, but Syngonium are really hardy, really hard to kill, really easy plants in my experience. So I don't know why they wouldn't do well in leca, and that's why I'm moving some of them to leca. And then as far as sunlight, most of my Syngonium get bright indirect light simply because that's just the kind of light I get in most of my apartment. So bright indirect, some of them are in this room, which gets west light. I think it's west. Southwest light. And others are in my living room where they get bright indirect south light. So it kind of varies, but mostly these guys thrive pretty well with midday to evening bright indirect light. Some of them are under grow light, some of them are not. For example, the ones I just showed you are not under a grow light. The original pot is just sitting on my floor in the office where it gets bright indirect light to medium indirect light, just depending on the time of day. And the jars are on a shelf next to a shelf with a grow light. So they aren't directly under a grow light, but they get kind of indirect grow light, if that makes sense. Because I don't want this video to be too long or boring, assume that all of those care instructions that I follow apply to all of these, unless otherwise stated. I have had pests on quite a few of these, but I don't find that the pests do a lot of damage if they're even there. So these tend to be pretty resilient. I've had some spider mites. It's really sucky to get spider mites off of Syngonium, especially like bushy Syngonium, like these two, but you can do it. And because Syngonium are pretty resilient, you can trim whatever leaves have pests on them and they will come back. I've got a little bit of spider mites right now on one of them that I'll show you, and I have just recently discovered it, so it's only had one treatment, and it seems to be starting to help. But anyways, let's continue. So next in the Syngonium that I want to show you is my pink Syngonium. You're not going to be able to see me through my plants, but what is in this pot is not only this pink one, but in here is also some illusion that has, so like this leaf is an illusion of some kind with pink, but the large majority of this pot is fully pink Syngonium, and it is really bushy. When it starts to get long, I trim it up, propagate it, and pop it back in when there's roots. So I'm going to move it back over here. Actually, I'll give you a close-up. Super beautiful plant. This one lives in my living room. When I talk about propagating, I realize that maybe I should show you what I mean in case anybody is curious. So I will show you this propagation stem that is in my jar. I essentially trim off a plant leaving on a couple of leaves. In the propagation process, I usually lose like the oldest leaf. So I always have a couple of leaves on there unless I'm really going for numbers, but I'm usually not. And then you want to make sure that on that cutting, I don't know if it's going to focus, but your stem has nodes. So nodes are going to be those like dark dots, raised bumps on the plant, and that is where the roots are going to come out. So that is the part that you want in the water or substrate of your choice. I use water because I prefer it. I'm trying out moss in like a box. I'm not too sure how I feel about it yet. You can also propagate directly into soil if you like, but I tend to let my plants dry out, especially my Syngonium, a little bit more. So usually if I just stick cuttings right into dirt, they die. So that is my pink one. From here, they all get a little bit more impressive. So I guess we'll stick with the pink theme while we're at it. And we can talk about my pink splash. Now this is in leca, so I'm spilling water everywhere. So this is my pink splash. You guys have seen it in a recent video, so I won't spend a ton of time on it. I recently repotted it, and some of them came in a recent order, but this is my original plant. I find that it grows quite a bit slower than like a white butterfly. Insert clip because I realized that that's not here. But it grows significantly slower than like a white butterfly or this pink one does. And I think part of that for me is that they were all imports. So they're used to a different environment. It took them a while to adjust. But once they started adjusting, it did pop out quite a few leaves, which I have propagated. But it took longer than it might for a white butterfly or my pink one over here. However, they do have such a different visual to them with the pink flecks and like pink half moons and whatnot that I think it is worth it, especially if you like pink plants. He has not been in leca super duper long, so I cannot speak to his experience with leca. We've been in leca for 3 days now. No issues, no yellowing leaves that weren't already yellowing. So far, so good. Next, let's talk about these ones. So I do not remember what is in this pot. I believe one of them is a jade, a Syngonium jade, but I do not know which one is a Syngonium jade, or if they are even possibly the same plant. I'm not sure. They're dusty, so this guy definitely needs a rinse. He is hanging on my macrame hanger wall that is behind the camera that I look at. But let me know if you can identify the jade versus the whatever else. But this is the larger of the plants. And then if we come over here, the other plant is significantly smaller. There might actually be 3 in here, but I think this one is the same as the first one I showed you. And the other plant includes just these 2 leaves. As you can see, there's some variegation, and they're newer leaves. They're unfurling. I let this guy dry out just a little bit too much, and they're kind of wonky. So this plant is super cool. I really like it. I am going to probably let this one get a little bit more linky versus full, and like this pink one is, simply because I want it to drape a little bit more than grow up. But similar care to the pink splash and the other ones so far. I have not noticed it needing any difference or being more sensitive. I do let it dry out kind of on accident way too much. And actually, I just found the tag. So it is part Syngonium Magic Marble, which is probably the smaller one, and part Syngonium Jade. Next, let's talk about my Syngonium Army. So I have a love-hate relationship with my Syngonium Army simply because I did a boo-boo. So it was doing super well, growing super duper duper fast, and I propagated it, stuck the propagations in water for a little bit. When they got roots, stuck them in dirt. My normal process. And then it's been hanging on my macrame wall. Well, I forgot to water it twice. And I lost all of the cuttings, almost all of the cuttings. I have one in here that hasn't died but doesn't have any leaves left, and then one that was a little bit more sturdy. But I lost all of the cuttings, and the original 2 stems now only have 2 to 3 leaves each because they lost a couple leaves also when I let it dry out too much. And I haven't been able to propagate it again, except today I propagated one of the leaves. But to give you kind of these leaves aren't really doing it justice because they are a little bit more stressed and dirty. They need to be cleaned. But it's kind of like, yeah, I don't know. It's a really cool plant. I really like it, and I'm hoping that I can do better by it so that I can enjoy it more. Next, let's talk about my Syngonium Ribbon. I bought this in one of my overseas orders semi-recently, and it has finally started growing past the adjustment period. It's just got these really long ribbony leaves with the tiny little ears. I just think it looks so good. It's so cool. And yeah, I lost a couple of leaves in adjustment, but it's done really well in the adjustment period. It's a little bit smaller right now. It grew out a couple stunted leaves, but I really like it, and I'm excited to make this one bushy. I think this one will look really cool bushy. Again, similar care. So far, I've kept this one in my greenhouse while it's been adjusting, and that's partially stayed his living environment, simply because I don't have space outside of the greenhouse right now. So we'll probably stay in there until I need the space in the greenhouse. But for now, he's loving life. And that's kind of where he's at. In a similar light is my Winlandii. So my Winlandii really struggled to adjust. And this is the plant that I told you had spider mites. So I lost quite a few leaves to that. And I've got quite a few new ones. Some that came out during the spider mites, so they're a little damaged. Some still unfurling, like this guy and this little guy right here. But overall, he's doing pretty well now that he's doing better. And he lives in my greenhouse, especially now. My greenhouse doesn't hold humidity like it used to because the cats have punctured a lot of holes in it. So now it just kind of is a safe space, because if my cats jump up on the shelf, they're likely not going to fall over or be knocked out of their pot. So it's more for protection than it is for humidity anymore. I wish that I could give this guy more humidity right now because he is still adjusting. But I found very similar care so far. He needs probably a little bit more water than I give him, and that's because of his size, and not because he himself needs more water. Just the smaller ones dry out quicker. It just makes sense that way. And so I should be a little bit more consistent in the watering. He needs one right now. But otherwise, very similar care. I'd even venture to say less light than some of the others. He's kind of velvety and he's a dark color. I have him under a grow light, and I think that's too much light. I may move him. I just worry about the cats knocking him over. I've got two more, and I think you're going to like them. They are my current favorites. So, the least impressive of my current favorites is this guy. I got him in my recent, I believe it was my Green Spaces order. He's like a mottled leaf. Looks really cool. I believe it came with 2 or 3 leaves, and then this one has popped out in the adjustment period. He is now my other one that is in LECA, and he has since started unfurling since I put him in LECA. He gets a little bit less light than some of my other Syngoniums do, but he does get indirect grow light. And he actually usually sits on the shelf behind me underneath one of my plant stands, which is probably why he leans a little bit. But I think he'll be okay. I'm not too worried. I haven't decided if I want to make him a full plant or like a hangy plant or a climby plant. I haven't decided, and he's too small and he can figure it out later. And now for the grand finale. You guys have seen this plant many times. It is one of my favorite plants, and I did a giveaway of a cutting of this plant. But it is my Syngonium variegated. So I do not believe I have showed you guys this plant since I have potted the yellow and the white variegation together. As you know, a lot of my yellow variegation is pretty much reverted. Honestly, most of the leaves are really green. There's not a ton of variegation left in the stem. So I just keep trimming them back and propagating, hoping I'll get some yellow back. I personally cannot tell, but I think this one is yellow variegation when I compare it to some of the others. So I'm not entirely sure, but I think that's a yellow variegation. So I think I'm succeeding a little bit there. And if that is yellow variegation, then so is this leaf. So we do have some yellow variegation if I am correct in there. But I repotted them together because I don't necessarily care for the difference. Like, it doesn't matter so much to me. But this guy is growing like hotcakes. I cannot keep him watered to save my life. And I am considering moving him to Leca simply for that reason. The pot is always in need of water. It's starting to crisp quicker, but it is just, I mean, it's ginormous. These stems alone are starting to fall, and I am excited for them to do that. But there's so much variegation. I mean, we've got new leaves popping in everywhere. There's a couple over here. I mean, it's just such a beautiful plant. Some of my prized leaves, if I can even get you to see them. This one is beautiful. I really enjoyed this one. Also, this one. And the side of the plant that I actually see from my desk is this side, where it's got some smaller variegation leaves. It's got a weird funky half moon, and this one's got a ton of texture, so that one's super interesting. But this is kind of where I have put the most recent cuttings, and it looks really, really good. I really love this plant, and I cannot wait to see what happens. I'm propagating it all of the time and trying to make it really, really bushy. I want it to be bushy and droopy. I'm so excited. It's on a shelf right in front of me. But he requires really low maintenance. I really struggled with the yellow one, and that's partly because it didn't have a ton of variegation and I just kind of gave up on it. But then I decided that that was mean of me, and I have since been working on it. Yeah, pretty easy care, honestly. I highly recommend you getting one of these. I know they're they're more difficult to get these days. Or maybe I'll do another giveaway. Let me know in the comments down below if you want to see another elbow Syngonium giveaway. But that is my Syngonium collection. I inserted the clip of the white butterfly because I don't want to take it out of the hanging spot. But that is otherwise all of my Syngonium. I absolutely love Syngonium, and I'm always looking for new varieties. I actually think this is one of the plants that looks really good potted mixed, which is why I have all of my illusions mixed together, because I think that it's really cool to see the slight variations. Eventually, when this plant gets fuller, I may add it in with this bushy pink one, but for now it's too small, so I'm keeping it separate. I may eventually add this model looking one to my army, because I think that that'll be a cool dynamic, but for now they are not potted together for no reason necessarily. But I really love the way Syngonium grow, look, and they're easy, so I always recommend them to my beginners, especially like an illusion Syngonium. You can get those pretty easily, at least in the Midwest where I am. They're pretty common on online shops. Same with the white butterfly. Those ones are really common, but super easy, super resilient. It can handle a little bit of a beating. Highly recommend. Let me know in the comments down below, what is your favorite Syngonium variety, and what is the next variety that I should get, and how can I get it? Oh, and thank you to our sponsor, Chaotronics. Again, the product link will be down below, as well as a coupon code for the ring light and other products that they offer. Let me know what you think of the lighting, if I should change it. I showed you the options at the beginning, so let me know what looks the best for you guys. I really do want to make my content a little bit better now that I'm becoming more able to, and I have graduated with my master's, so I have the time. At least a little bit more time. But yeah. Thanks so much for watching this video. Like it if you like, subscribe if you want to see more houseplant content, and I will see you next time.